Fox News Digital has exclusively learned that nearly a dozen of President-elect Donald Trump's cabinet nominees and other appointees tapped for the incoming administration were targeted with, quote, violent, un-American threats to their lives and those who live with them. These threats prompted a swift law enforcement response. Hello, everyone. This is Outnumbered. I'm Emily Campagno, and joining me today, Julie Banderas, Fox News anchor, Dr. Nicole Saphier, Fox News contributor and board-certified physician, Nicole Parker, former FBI special agent and Fox News contributor, and David Webb, Fox News contributor and host of The David Webb Show on Sirius XM Patriot. Now, Peter Doocy is at the White House right now, live with the details. Peter.
Emily, this is a potential national security problem, so we have reached out to the National Security Council at the White House to find out what they are tracking. We will bring you their answer once we have one. We have also been in touch with some officials down with the transition team at Mar-a-Lago. They are not willing to go any further at this time than this statement. We made a graphic so you can follow along. Last night and this morning, several of President Trump's cabinet nominees and administration appointees were targeted in violent, un-American threats to their lives and those who live with them. These attacks ranged from bomb threats to swatting. In response, law enforcement and other authorities acted quickly to ensure the safety of those who were targeted. President Trump and the entire transition team are grateful for their swift action. And just as we were coming to air, we learned who at least one of these Trump appointees, or rather Trump nominees, who received one of these threats last night. It was Elise Stefanik, who President Trump wants confirmed by the Senate to be the ambassador to the United Nations. She says, in part, in a statement, this morning, her office says, this morning, Congresswoman Elise Stefanik, her husband, and their 3-year-old son were driving home to Saratoga County from Washington for Thanksgiving when they were informed of a bomb threat to their residence. She goes on to describe a pretty robust response. And we were also told that this is Fox News Digital, that the director of the CIA nominee, John Ratcliffe, and Pete Hegseth, the DOD nominee, were among those targeted too. Keep in mind, these are all private citizens right now who are up for big jobs in the future. And once somebody takes over the Defense Department, say, they would have Pentagon police. Once somebody takes over the CIA, they would have CIA police. But right now, they are private citizens living in their homes preparing for confirmation hearings. So they don't have security details per se to deal with something like a swatting incident where the police show up because of an erroneous, with guns drawn potentially because of an erroneous tip that there is some kind of violent action happening. So we will bring you more names as we have them, as well as the White House response as we have it. President Biden is vacationing in Nantucket at the moment. We don't know if he has been briefed yet.
All right, Peter Doocy, thank you. We hope there are no more names, and we hope that the message coming out of the White House while on vacation is one of support for the protection of these appointees, certainly. All right, good thing we have the experts on the couch today. Perfect timing. Nicole Parker, break down the analysis. So as Peter pointed out, these guys are not yet under the protection of Secret Service and the like. What are they looking at? What will the response be? And how can we ensure their safety?
Okay, first of all, that's an extremely good point, because when you are a sworn-in individual, then you have the protection. They do not have that right now. So having worked on the FBI Miami's Violent Crime Fugitive Task Force, I can tell you that I have worked, these types of threats, bomb threats, threats to life. I certainly hope that the FBI is getting in there immediately and looking at this, because I can tell you basically any threat crosses state lines. Therefore, it could be a federal jurisdiction. The FBI should be all over this. And no one should have to live in fear because they have been asked to serve their country. That is reprehensible. It is un-American. And there can be no tolerance for this. And it must be nipped right now so that those out there think this is not going to be tolerated, and they have to locate who these individuals are, and they need to be facing consequences and accountability. Threats are not okay. And again, the FBI is fully capable of tracking these people down. We used to do it all of the time, and I sure hope that they bring them to justice soon, and this does not continue.
So just to clarify, would the FBI then be tasked with protecting these individuals, or this is they're there to identify who's making the threats only?
That's a really good question. Not necessarily would they be tasked with it, but we all know that certain things can happen if it is brought down from the administration and they say, look, we need assistance with this. I know working for the FBI, there would be threats to AUSAs, to judges, to agents, and they would provide protective detail by the FBI for certain individuals. If they can do that for those situations, I would think that they'll come up with a solution for this because, again, no one should have to live in fear. Their families should not have to live in fear, and they should not be the target of these types of attacks.
Oh, it's just frightening. All right, law enforcement expert. So, David, break down in this gray area, what are they facing? And as we learn, there might be potentially additional names as well. So does this strain the resources in place?
Well, it always strains resources, and then you have to reallocate resources, whether a local agency, a cooperative effort. But this isn't also limited potentially to just a domestic threat, whether it crosses a state line. We also have Iran, we have Russia, we have contractor actors in Eastern Europe, we have Chinese agencies set up to do this. We have elements in Latin America. So the problem for the FBI is to now find the source of the threat. Is it routed, for example, through an Eastern European server, or does it come from an enemy? So it's not just limited to the states, but then you also have to expand to the families, because these threats include multiple members of the families. Just look at the numbers of Trump family members alone. Or look at these families. We have 4 or 5 members, a kid going to school. You never know until you dig in further. And that's where not only FBI, but intelligence comes into play. We have intelligence gathering services. They should be tracking what's going on around the world on a moment-by-moment basis, looking for chatter, looking for anything that indicates that this is some other type of threat.
Yeah, and again, as we transition to these official offices or through the confirmation process, Julie, the reality is frightening in that there isn't an already that structure in place. And I'm just thinking about, as you know, President Trump-elect has really amassed this Avenger squad. We know in a moment it's going to be mess around and find out. But in the interim, I am frightened and want to make sure that our future Avengers are protected now.
Yeah, I think we need to talk about why this is happening. This is all due to the angry vitriol that came from the Democratic Party during the presidential election. They have painted the Republicans with such an evil stroke to convince a lot of people who are ignorant, they're uninformed and uneducated, that the Republican Party is the devil, and that if you are around a Republican, they hate you. They hate anyone who's of a minority status. They hate women. They don't want women to have rights. They want to deport every single illegal immigrant in this country. Not true. They're focusing on criminals. So they've been fed so much BS, and that is why this is happening. And the Democratic Party is 100% responsible for these threats. They need to come out and actually speak up. I'd like to hear from Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris loved to talk about the hate against the Palestinians during the war, right? Why doesn't she come out and say, look, anyone out there who's trying to target a Republican, especially someone who is running for office, it is absolutely unacceptable. I guarantee you we will not hear a word from the vice president or the president on this while he's vacationing in Nantucket.
Yeah, such a great point, because we went through this, Doctor, with 2 horrific attempted assassinations of now President-elect Trump. And while at the moment it seemed to foster a call for unity and a tamping down of that rhetoric, it seemed to then just foment once again right after. This is exactly the right time to have the administration come out and say, we do not support this.
Mm-hmm. The Biden administration constantly said that they were for unity and they wanted to bring Americans together. And so that shouldn't stop just because they lost the election. You guys, glossed over it briefly, talking about the resources that are wasted with these threats. These threats are being made by cowards. But the thing that they're doing is they're un-American, but they're un-American in the sense that the only people who are really getting hurt here are Americans, and your citizens are getting hurt here. Each time they call out for those swatting, that's about $10,000 to taxpayers to cover that. Not to mention, we already have longer than normal response times for EMS and emergency services. This week, Thanksgiving week, is one of the busiest weeks in the year for emergency services. So you have people at home having heart attacks and strokes, and they're not going to get their ambulance because you have these cowards at home who are trying to upend our democracy. And this is the true threat to democracy.
Well, as we learn more, we will certainly keep you apprised of all developments of these violent threats to Trump nominees. So just stay with us. Hey, everyone. I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.